Okay, so you want to own an electric vehicle dealership. Buy a few acres of prime highway frontage, put up an ultra-modern showroom with floor-to-ceiling glass, line up rows of sleek, silent EVs under LED floodlights, and watch tech-forward buyers hand you six-figure checks. That's the vision. Local clean energy mogul driving the flagship performance model, getting invited to speak at regional green tech summits, retiring at 50 on passive cash flow. Here's the problem. Almost none of that is how this business actually works. In fact, if you take the already brutal, low-margin, heavily leveraged math of a traditional legacy car dealership and slap a high-voltage battery on it, the financial model doesn't just change, it completely flips upside down. Let me show you why. Let's start with the illusion, because just like in the traditional auto market, the illusion is doing a massive amount of heavy lifting. Across the global automotive landscape, electric vehicles have morphed from a niche side project into a multi-hundred-billion-dollar battleground. Millions of battery electric vehicles are rolling off assembly lines annually. Government mandates, corporate sustainability targets, and billions in federal subsidies are aggressively pushing the market toward electrification. To an outsider looking at $60,000 sticker prices and packed order books, it looks like an absolute license to print money. The numbers look staggering. The global electric vehicle market generates hundreds of billions of dollars in gross sales every year. On paper, it looks like the ultimate modern gold rush, the kind of industry where a standard person says, "I need to own a piece of that." But here's the part the OEM brochures, financial news headlines, and green energy hype cycles will never tell you. Despite moving tens of millions of dollars in electric cars through a mid-sized facility every single year, the average franchise EV dealer keeps somewhere between 1 and 2.5% of that total top-line revenue as actual net profit. Not 10%, not 15%, 1 to 2.5%. Sell an $80,000 premium electric SUV. If everything goes flawlessly, if the car doesn't sit on your lot bleeding floor plan interest, if the customer doesn't negotiate every dollar of margin out of the deal, and if you don't get hit with unexpected prep costs, you might clear somewhere between $800 and $1,600 once every single operational cost is accounted for. And that's assuming you can even make money on the car sale itself, which, as you're about to see, is getting harder by the day. So how does a business operating on razor-thin 2% net margins, selling vehicles that require exponentially more upfront capital, fewer moving parts to repair, and an entirely new power infrastructure, produce some of the wealthiest business owners in the country? That is the exact core question, and the answer has almost nothing to do with the electric cars themselves. To understand where the cash actually flows, you first have to understand what you're actually buying into. If you want to get into the EV dealer game today, there are three distinct doors you can walk through. Each one is a completely different financial engine wearing the same illuminated logo out front. Door number one, the legacy franchise EV dealer. This is your Ford, Hyundai, Chevrolet, Kia, or BMW dealership. You are operating under a traditional franchise model, but you are undergoing a high-stakes transition to electric. The advantage: mass volume, massive national marketing budgets paid for by the automaker, and immediate brand recognition, and a deep safety net of internal combustion and hybrid vehicles to keep your lights on while EV adoption fluctuates. The catch: complete surrender of operational autonomy. The manufacturer will dictate your building design, force you to spend millions on proprietary high-voltage charging networks, assign you EV inventory allocations whether your local market wants them or not, and aggressively audit your facility compliance. Door number two, the emerging Pureplay EV franchise. Think of boutique luxury import brands, new international EV manufacturers attempting to enter established markets via franchise models, or specialized luxury electric brands. The math here flips. You move far fewer units, but the sticker prices are massive, and the gross margin per vehicle can look much fatter on paper. Your customer base is wealthy, relatively immune to broader economic downturns, and eager to pay premium prices for the newest technology. The catch: the cost of admission is astronomical. Constructing an ultra-modern, high-tech retail environment that meets luxury EV brand standards makes a standard dealership look cheap. Worse yet, if the brand struggles with software glitches, battery recall crises, or supply chain bottlenecks, you have no gas-powered truck or SUV inventory to fall back on. If the brand stumbles, your entire lot freezes. Door number 3, the independent used EV specialist. No manufacturer looking over your shoulder, no corporate brand guidelines, no mandatory $250,000 fast charger installation on your front curb. Just you, a paved lot, and access to wholesale dealer auctions like Manheim and Adisa. It is by far the cheapest way into the electric vehicle business. It is also, financially speaking, walking a tightrope without a net. Independent used EV lots don't get factory-subsidized warranty repair work, a department that, as we'll analyze shortly, is usually where a dealership's true profit hides. They have to secure their own floor plan lines of credit at significantly higher interest rates than franchise dealers. Worse, independent EV dealers are acutely exposed to sudden, wild price swings in the used EV market. If a major EV manufacturer slashes the MSRP of its new vehicles by $10,000 overnight, something that has happened repeatedly in recent years, the value of every used EV sitting on an independent lot drops off a cliff before the sun comes up. So before you have spent a single dollar, the structural math is already sending you a warning. The franchise model, expensive and restrictive as it is, remains a dominant survival vehicle. It is built to endure catastrophic market shifts because it stacks multiple profit engines on top of each other. But in the EV world, those profit engines work very differently than they used to.
This is where the suburban retail fantasy goes to die. To open a standard, mainstream franchise dealership capable of selling and servicing modern electric vehicles, you're looking at a total launch capital requirement of anywhere from $7 million to over $15 million. Let's break down where that money actually goes, because EV requirements have introduced a brutal new set of financial hurdles that traditional gas car dealers never had to face. First, you have the franchise fee and capital requirements. The check you write for the right to represent the brand can range from $50,000 to well over $500,000, depending on the manufacturer and market size. But the manufacturer won't even talk to you unless you can prove liquid reserves. Most brands require you to show anywhere from $1 million to $3 million in pure, unencumbered liquid cash sitting in a bank account, alongside a total corporate net worth of $4 million to $10 million. They need to know that if your lot sits full of unsold inventory during a high interest rate environment, you won't fold in 6 months. Second, there is the real estate and construction. A viable dealership requires between 4 and 8 acres of commercial land, but building an EV-ready facility is exponentially more expensive than building a legacy showroom. A standard tilt-up concrete showroom build costs anywhere from $200 to $400 per square foot. However, for an EV facility, construction costs balloon quickly due to structural and safety mandates. High-voltage battery packs weigh anywhere from 1,000 to 2,500 pounds. That means your service bay floors need reinforced, ultra-thick concrete slabs to support heavy-duty, multi-ton vehicle lifts specifically engineered for low-profile, heavy-bottomed battery platforms. Then comes the real financial hammer: electrical infrastructure and grid interconnects. A traditional car dealership needs electricity for lighting, air conditioning, and computer terminals. An EV dealership is essentially a mini power utility. To sell and service modern EVs, manufacturers require dealers to install Level 3 DC fast chargers on site, not just for customer delivery, but for servicing and staging inventory. A single dual dispenser 180 to 350 kilowatt DC fast charger can cost anywhere from $80,000 to $200,000 for the hardware and installation alone. Now factor in the utility company. If your site doesn't have sufficient transformer capacity nearby, which most commercial strip zones don't, you, the dealer, have to pay the local electric utility to bring high-voltage lines to your site, install step-down transformers, and upgrade the regional electric grid infrastructure. It is shockingly common for an EV dealer to face an unexpected $300,000 to $1.2 million utility upgrade bill before they even turn on a single charger. Some dealers even have to install commercial battery energy storage systems, massive stationary battery banks on site, just to buffer the power draw so the local utility doesn't hit them with tens of thousands of dollars in monthly peak demand charges. Finally, you have specialized service equipment and safety compliance. Servicing high-voltage systems, 300 volts to 800 volts plus, requires heavy-duty insulated hand tools rated to 1,000 volts, dedicated high-voltage diagnostic tools and software subscriptions, overhead gantry cranes or specialized battery assembly tables capable of dropping and maneuvering 1,500-pound battery packs out from under a chassis. fire-isolated, explosion-resistant battery storage rooms and hazmat containment units in case a damaged battery enters thermal runaway, specialized personal protective equipment, arc flash suits, and mandatory high-voltage safety training for every technician in the building. Add licensing, legal fees, dealer management software integration, and state bonding, $50,000 to $150,000, and you've spent millions of dollars before a single customer walks through the glass doors.
Now let me explain how inventory actually works, because this is where first-time operators get crushed by math they didn't see coming. Dealerships do not buy their inventory in cash. When you see 150 shiny new electric vehicles sitting on a lot, the dealer didn't write a check for $9 million to the factory. They financed every single one of those vehicles through a specialized revolving line of credit called floor plan financing, usually provided by the financial arm of the automaker or a major commercial bank. The lender fronts 90% to 100% of the factory invoice price for every vehicle shipped to the lot. The dealer holds the metal, the bank holds the debt. The second a vehicle is sold to a retail buyer, the floor plan loan for that specific VIN must be paid off immediately. Here's how the floor plan engine works. The lender charges interest on that rolling inventory every single month. Floor plan interest rates are typically variable, pegged to the prime rate or SOFR plus 1.5% to 3.5%. When interest rates are low, holding inventory is manageable. But when benchmark rates rise, the cost of holding unsold inventory becomes a terrifying, relentless burn rate. Combine interest charges, commercial property insurance, lot security, wash and detail labor, and straight market depreciation, and the industry holding cost for a single $60,000 electric vehicle sits between $45 and $95 per day per vehicle. Now do the macro math. If you are running a medium-sized store holding an average inventory of 120 EVs on your lot, your floor plan and holding overhead is draining roughly $6,000 to $10,000 every single day. If a batch of EVs sits on your lot for 90 days instead of the ideal 30 days because consumer interest cools or a competitor drops prices, that slow month just costs you $250,000 to $300,000 in pure, unrecoverable holding interest. And electric vehicles carry a unique operational nightmare that gas-powered cars don't: state of charge management. A gas-powered car can sit on a lot for 4 months with 3 gallons of fuel in the tank. You jumpstart the 12-volt battery if it dies, turn the key, and drive away. If a lithium-ion EV sits on a lot for months at a 0% state of charge, or conversely sits at a 100% state of charge under a burning 95-degree summer sun, the main high-voltage battery pack can suffer permanent capacity degradation before the car is ever registered to its first owner. To prevent this, EV dealers must employ dedicated lot personnel whose entire job is rotating, staging, and charging inventory to maintain batteries within the ideal 40 to 80% state of charge window. That is added labor, added electricity costs, and added operational drag that gas dealerships simply do not deal with. If vehicles sit past 90 or 120 days, the floor plan lender triggers curtailment clauses. A curtailment forces a dealer to start paying down the actual principal balance of the vehicle out of their cash reserves, usually 10% of the vehicle's value every 30 days, on a car that hasn't sold yet. When curtailments hit, dealers panic. They start slashing prices below invoice, burning whatever margin they had left just to get the vehicle off their floor plan before it bankrupts them. To survive this, sophisticated dealer groups utilize last-in, first-out accounting. Under LIFO, when a vehicle is sold, the dealership assumes for tax purposes that the vehicle sold was the most recently acquired, and usually most expensive unit. This artificially inflates the dealership's reported cost of goods sold, which depresses their net taxable income on paper. It acts as an interest-free tax deferral from the government, allowing the dealer group to keep hundreds of thousands of dollars in liquid cash inside the operational business rather than sending it to the IRS. It doesn't make the cars sell faster, but it gives the owner the working capital needed to survive a high interest rate floor plan squeeze.
So if you're spending millions on grid upgrades, paying high floor plan interest rates, and taking thin margins on front-end car sales, how does an EV dealership stay solvent? This is where the entire business model flips. The money is not where the public thinks it is. Everyone assumes a car dealer makes their fortune on the gross profit margin of the physical car, the front-end margin between the invoice price and the sale price. In the EV market, that front-end profit margin is virtually non-existent. Between extreme price transparency on the internet, direct-to-consumer price wars, and OEMs attempting to squeeze dealer margins down to agency model percentages, around 3 to 5%. Selling a brand new EV off the showroom floor is often a break-even proposition, or sometimes even a loss leader. So where does the profit come from? It comes from the back office, specifically the finance and insurance F&I department. The F&I office, the small windowless office you walk into after you've agreed on the vehicle price, is responsible for generating 35 to 45% of a well-run dealership's total gross profit. Here is how the engine generates high-margin cash on an electric vehicle. 1. Interest rate spreads, dealer reserve. When you apply for financing through the dealership, the bank returns an approved wholesale interest rate, known as the buy rate, say 5.5%. The dealership is legally permitted to mark that rate up, usually by 1 to 2 percentage points, and present the customer with a contract rate, say 7.5%. That 2% spread over a 60 or 72-month loan gets converted into an upfront cash payout from the lender directly to the dealer. It's called dealer reserve, and it is practically pure profit generated out of thin air. 2. EV-specific federal tax credit structuring. This is one of the biggest hidden profit drivers in modern EV retailing. Under federal tax law, clean vehicle tax credits for personal retail buyers come with strict buyer income limits, MSRP caps, and complex battery material origin rules. Many retail buyers don't qualify. However, under Section 45W of the tax code, commercial EV leases are exempt from almost all of those restrictions. When a dealership structures an EV transaction as a lease through the OEM's captive finance company, the finance company claims the full $7,500 commercial tax credit directly from the government. The finance company then uses that credit to artificially boost a residual value of the car or lower the payment, while the dealership collects a fat acquisition fee and financing commission for originating the lease contract. It turns complex federal tax policy into immediate back-end cash flow. 3. High-margin protection products and extended battery warranties. While traditional buyers are pitched rust-proofing and transmission warranties, EV buyers are pitched specialized protection products tailored to their anxiety. Extended high-voltage battery and drive unit protection plans. Factory battery warranties typically cover 8 years or 100,000 miles against total battery failure, but they rarely cover minor capacity degradation or out-of-warranty control module failures. F&I managers sell extended battery protection plans that cost a dealer $1,200 wholesale for $2,800 to $4,000, a 100 to 200% markup. Gap insurance. Electric vehicles, particularly in their early retail cycles, suffer from steep depreciation curves. If a buyer finances a $70,000 EV with zero down, that car might be worth $45,000 18 months later. If it gets totaled in an accident, the buyer owes a massive $25,000 delta to the bank. Gap insurance covers that delta. The dealer buys the gap policy from an underwriter for $250 to $400 and sells it to the buyer for $895 to $1,400. Tire and wheel protection packages. Because electric vehicles are extremely heavy due to their battery packs and deliver instant electric torque, they destroy tires at a rate 20 to 40% faster than internal combustion cars. F&I departments leverage this fact heavily, selling high-margin tire and wheel replacement protection packages to almost every EV customer who sits in the chair. The ultimate wealth secret: offshore captive reinsurance. Now, here is the institutional wealth structure that separates small-time dealers from multi-millionaire dealership titans. When a dealer sells you a $3,000 extended EV battery warranty or a tire protection plan, an average dealer takes a one-time commission, maybe $1,000, and lets the warranty company take the rest. A sophisticated dealer does something completely different. They set up their own offshore captive reinsurance company in a jurisdiction like the Turks and Caicos, the Cayman Islands, or Nevada. Under this structure, when you buy that $3,000 insurance, the risk premium portion of that money gets transferred directly into the dealer's offshore reinsurance company. The dealer's reinsurance company now acts as the actual insurer. If your EV never breaks down, or if the repairs over 5 years only cost $500, the other $2,500 of underwriting profit doesn't belong to
a third-party warranty corporate entity. It belongs to the dealer's offshore company. Under specific tax elections, such as Section 831B of the U.S. Internal Revenue Code, small captive insurance companies can elect to be taxed only on their investment income, paying 0% corporate tax on the underwriting profits up to annual statutory limits running into millions of dollars. That untaxed underwriting cash sits inside the reinsurance company, where the dealer invests it into stocks, corporate bonds, or real estate, compounding wealth at an astonishing rate, completely insulated from the physical dealership's operational liabilities. The car was never the main profit engine. The car was simply the physical asset required to originate the insurance and financial contracts that feed the dealer's private wealth vault.
Now we arrive at the single biggest crisis facing traditional dealers transitioning to electric vehicles: the death of fixed operations. In a gas car dealership, parts and service generate only 10 to 15% of total revenue, but account for 50 to 70% of total gross profit. Why? Because labor margins run 50 to 70%, and parts markups hit 30 to 50%. Legacy dealers rely on a metric called the service absorption rate, the percentage of fixed dealership overhead, rent, salaries, utilities, covered purely by service profits. An elite gas car dealer hits a 100% plus absorption rate, meaning the service bays pay for the entire building before a single car is sold upstairs. Enter the EV. A gas engine has roughly 2,000 moving parts requiring oil changes, spark plugs, timing belts, and exhaust repairs. An EV drivetrain has about 20. Thanks to regenerative braking, hydraulic brake pads can last 100,000 miles. Overall, EVs require 30 to 50% less routine maintenance, causing traditional service absorption rates to collapse to 50 to 60%. To survive, modern EV dealers are re-engineering their service drives around 4 high-margin channels. Tire and alignment shops. EVs are up to 30% heavier and deliver instant torque, chewing through specialized tires in 15 to 25,000 miles. Dealers pair rapid tire turns with mandatory 200 to 350 multi-axis alignments. Thermal system flushes. EVs rely on complex dielectric liquid cooling loops for the battery and motor. Flushing these systems every 3 to 5 years yields $500 to $1,200 per service. Software and module diagnostics. EVs are computers on wheels. Independent shops lack the 50,000-plus factory diagnostic suites, giving franchise dealers a structural monopoly to charge $200 to $350 per hour for master EV tech labor. Collision and battery reconditioning. Dropping a multi-100-pound pack, swapping failed cell modules, and rebalancing pack voltages carries labor gross margins exceeding 60 to 70%. Technicians still run on the flat-rate pay system. If a battery flush guide allocates 3 labor hours at $250 an hour, $750 billed to the customer, and the master tech finishes it in 1.2 hours at $45 an hour, $54 labor cost, the dealership pockets the $696 spread. Selling EVs takes longer than selling gas cars because salespeople must educate buyers on charging levels, home electrical upgrades, winter range loss, and tax credits. To manage payroll, dealers pay salespeople 20 to 30% of the front-end profit, but only after deducting an internal operational fee called a PAC, $600 to $1,200. On a deal with $2,500 gross profit, subtracting an $800 PAC leaves $1,700 in commissionable gross. The salesperson gets 25%, $425, while the house keeps $1,275 plus the $800 PAC. Zero-margin deals pay a flat mini, $100 to $200. Overhead is further bloated by software toll booths. Dealer Management Systems, DMS, charge $4,000 to $12,000 monthly. Add charging telematics and inventory syndication, and software subscriptions can burn $25,000 a month.
When a customer negotiates down to invoice price, the dealership relies on hidden subsidies. Dealer holdback. Manufacturers quietly refund 2 to 3% of the vehicle's MSRP back to the dealer post-sale, $1,200 to $2,800 in unlisted profit. Documentation fees. Pure administrative profit added to the contract, ranging from $85 in regulated states up to $1,395 in states like Florida. During negotiations, managers used a four-square sheet: purchase price, trade-in, down payment, monthly payment. Because EV buyers fixate on the monthly payment, managers seamlessly pass through tax credits or lower the vehicle price while quietly trimming trade-in equity or stretching loan terms out to 84 months, protecting the dealer's margin. Franchise EV dealers operate in a semi-feudal relationship with automakers. When OEMs launched electrification plans, they issued forced mandates: invest $500,000 to $1.2 million in site chargers, specialized tools, and no haggle pricing, or lose EV allocations entirely. Dealer associations fought back with state lawsuits alleging violations of franchise protection laws, forcing automakers to backtrack on upgrade requirements. Early adopter dealers who already spent the capital received no refunds. Simultaneously, legacy dealers faced the threat of direct-to-consumer D2C brands like Tesla, prompting legacy OEMs to push for an agency model. Under an agency setup, the OEM owns the inventory and sells directly online, reducing the dealer to a logistics handoff point, receiving a flat $1,000 to $1,500 delivery fee. Dealers are pouring millions into lobbying to block this structure. Finally, thermal runaway risks have caused commercial property insurance for EV lots to surge by 20% to 100%, requiring thermal cameras, 20-foot staging isolation zones, and specialized hazmat containment skips. Single-store owners face severe headwinds. Multi-store groups survive by consolidating accounting, HR, and IT into a single shared services office, while aggregating thousands of warranty contracts into a single high-yielding offshore reinsurance pool. Advanced EV groups also turn their electrical infrastructure into a profit center through energy arbitrage, peak shaving, using on-site solar canopies and battery energy storage systems, or BESS, to power the dealership during peak utility hours, avoiding massive demand charges. Grid feed-in, selling stored power back to the municipal grid at premium rates during peak demand events. Public charging hubs, monetizing level 3 fast chargers along highways during non-business hours. Here is a real annual P&L for a mid-sized EV dealership generating $60 million in revenue. Gross revenue, $60 million, 100%. Cost of goods sold, $51,600,000, 86%. Gross profit, $8,400,000, 14%. Operating expenses, $6,930,000, 11.55%. Payroll, floor plan interest, rent, software, utilities, marketing, insurance. Net pre-tax profit, $1,470,000, 2.45%. A 2.45% net margin means a slight interest rate jump or a 20-day delay in moving inventory can slice profits in half. Yet, an owner builds multi-million-dollar annual wealth by stacking 4 income layers. W-2 base salary, $150,000 to $250,000. Net profit distributions, $800,000 to $1,200,000. Real estate lease payments, $400,000 to $800,000 via a separate LLC owning the land. Offshore reinsurance dividends, $300,000 to $800,000 plus untaxed underwriting profits. Total take-home, $1.5 million to $3 million plus annually per store. The verdict. Owning an EV dealership is not a simple buy and markup retail business. It is a heavily leveraged, capital-intensive financial machine requiring constant navigation between high interest rates, OEM mandates, and complex back-end accounting. However, for those who master the financial machine, it remains remarkably resilient. When vehicle sales slow down, tire shops and diagnostic bays cover the overhead. When front-end margins compress, F&I spreads, tax credit lease passes, holdback checks, and offshore reinsurance recap pools supply the profit. The electric vehicle on the showroom floor was never the core product. It is simply the hook that pulls the customer into a lifetime of high-margin financial ecosystem cash flows.